Hello and welcome to Circus Talk Pro Talk entitled The Talent Code. I'm Stacy Clark, CEO of Circus Talk. I'm a white cis woman in my early 50s. I have a medium sporty build, blonde shoulder length hair, and my pronouns are she, her. I begin by acknowledging that this Pro Talk is being hosted on unceded Indigenous lands. The Ga-Nyang-Gahaga Nation is recognized as the custodians of the lands and waters on which I live today. Gaje, Montreal is historically known as a gathering place for many First Nations. Today, it is home to a diverse population of Indigenous and other peoples. We respect the continued connections with the past, present, and future in our ongoing relationships with Indigenous and other peoples in the Montreal community. Joining me for today's Pro Talk are Jean-Luc Martin, Nicky Dewhurst, and Jean-Paul Richard. Jean-Luc is the founder and program director of San Diego Circus Center. He is a former circus performer, stunt actor, and film producer. Nicky Dewhurst is a writer, director, and performer. Nicky has performed in 5 different Cirque du Soleil shows and has co-written and directed 2 of Cirque du Soleil's One Night for One Drop shows. And Jean-Paul Richard is an Olympic coach, speaker, and founder of Tangible Performance.
Hi, my name is Jean-Luc. I'm a white cis male in my middle 50s. I have a medium large build with brown gray short hair. My pronouns are he, him. I am wearing a gray shirt and I'm in my office at San Diego Circus Center.
Hi, I'm Nicky Dewhurst. I'm a white cis man in my early 50s. I have a medium athletic build, short brown hair, and a salt and pepper goatee, and I'm wearing a gray t-shirt. My pronouns are he, him.
Hi, my name is Jean-Paul Richard. I am a white male in mid-40s. I have a medium athletic build, short brown hair, and I wear glasses. I'm currently wearing a black shirt.
I welcome all of you to our conversation today, and this is going to be a really very much conversation-based panel. I'm here to pipe in every now and then. I'd like to actually begin simply by stating that I'm throwing recognition to the Talent Code in the form of the book written by Daniel Coyle. Now, we didn't actually purposely title this after his book, but there are some terrific principles and super interesting information in this book that we may well tie some of our conversation into. We have in this framework of 4 squares coming together to make a larger on-screen virtual meeting, a collection of talent that, in my view, is outstanding. We have perspectives from on and off the stage, as well as on and off the international performing stage as it relates to both performing arts and sport. So I'm going to throw the doors open and invite probably Jean-Luc to just give us a little taste of what got the ball rolling on this subject matter. And from there, no holds barred, I invite everybody to contribute and pitch in, and I will help us to navigate this conversation as we evolve it. Jean-Luc.
Well, you know, it's been very interesting because Talent Code comes from when a student walks in, or a person or a performer walks in, what makes talent? What do they bring to the table, their table? What do we as teachers, leaders, mentors bring to the table for them? And how do we recognize it? And how do we follow a route to helping them reach their prime, their full potential? And what I totally enjoy about this panel is that I've worked with Nicky in the very beginning of my career. We performed in a show together, and then most recently worked with Jean-Paul with the PPP program with Cirque du Soleil, doing just that. How do we prepare young athletes to become young artists? And then as well as with Stacy with our preparatory and pro-track program, where she's working directly with the students to help understand the potential of their careers and also understand how do you make an act? How do you make an act how do you make a performance piece that speaks your voice, and how to identify that and how to work through it. So when we all sat down one day, we said, what would we like to express to the world? And I've always been fascinated with talent, including my own path. I've also been fascinated with other people's road and their route that they've taken, whether it's been from a very strict scientific, this is what you do, to a, hey, let's just have some fun. Let's just get together, guys and girls, and let's have some fun and play. And that's something in my world that I try to adjust to quite a bit. Yes, there's a time for strict schedule, instruction, maintaining your wellness. And there's also a time, what I call jeu in French, which is play. It's not just clowning, it's play with your apparatus, discover, research. So I'm really looking forward to this discussion and to see what we all kind of bring to the table from our own perspectives.
Nicky, why don't you give us a taste of where you come from? You are probably closest to the stage, much as you moved into more of a creator role, and as much as many of us have high performance or performing in our respective backgrounds, this is something that is in your genes and in your very DNA. Tell us a bit about your pathway.
Yeah, I mean, I've grown up around circus my whole life. Obviously, my father is still performing, 89 years old at Mystère, and he's got a job and I don't. So, just kidding. But no, it's kind of amazing to have gone through this period, this whole sort of journey with. First of all, I was a gymnast, and I learned, I guess, as the way that most of the performers nowadays learn is they come in with a high level skill. And so I had a reasonable level in gymnastics. And then I also had this circus going alongside it. So I was learning to juggle, I was learning to walk a tightrope, I was learning all these things being presented to me by my father. And so that naturally led to wanting to be in the business and to go into show business and perform. I got at a young age, I started doing street performing, and then it went from there. And then I got picked up by Circus, I think when I was 18. And so I don't want to do the math, but it was a long time ago. And so, yes, I worked with them, and then I've done a lot of other shows, West End musicals and various shows around in Las Vegas. But majority of my career has been with Cirque until recently. So.
You've already touched on something that I find interesting. So before I pass the torch to JP, Jean-Paul, I want to quote something from the Talent Code written by Daniel Coyle, because you've mentioned your dad and your environment already. And this quote or extraction from the book reads as, universal principles that govern all of us. Talent requires deep practice. We're going to get into that. Deep practice requires vast amounts of energy. But number 3, which you've referred to already, is primal cues trigger huge outpouring of energy. And those primal cues speak to the environment that you're in, an enriched environment that, in your case, came directly from your dad, your connection to the industry through your family. And I think that's a really interesting point that I'm hoping JP will let us dive into a little bit. So let's hear from you.
Yeah, it's really, really interesting. You know, for me, talent, it's everywhere. You know, it's of course in sports, circus, but also at work. But I think even if it's everywhere, I think it's misunderstood in 2021 also, you know. And just talking about talent, trying to maybe better explain and what is talent. And like you said from the quote, Stacy, I think most of the talent can emerge from the environment. And it's not someone have talent and the other are not. I think everybody can develop their talent. And I think if we can increase the understanding on if we create the right environment, not only for everyone, but we need to be specific, because I don't think it's a one-size-fits-all approach. I think we need to be really specific. We need to be really inclusive. We need to be really supportive, because everybody will evolve at their own pace. I think it starts with the environment, but I think that concept, it's quite misunderstood. And that's why I think I'm so happy to be on this panel, because for me, everything is connected. Even in sport or circus or at work, it's the same universal principle, like you said, universal principles. You said, I really like what you said that, because for me, from my perspective, it's really, you know, how can we connect the universal principles, and how can we make sure everybody are conscious of the universal principle, and make sure, you know, they follow a kind of sequences to support in all the stages, the artists, athlete, or the employees at work, to see them reach their full potential. And I'm sure, you know, it's exactly what Jean-Luc is doing at his center, and Nicky from his background, and also right now with his task. It's exactly the way they use their experience, and they transfer and they create that environment to see everybody grow and everybody evolve. So the environment, I think it's super important to develop the talent.
So let's dive into some examples of that. And I would love to hear from Jean-Luc about how that shows up actually in your space. And then perhaps from Nicky, what your experience is, both your lived experiences and the ones that you create in your own work environment as a creator, how that shows up, and really to whatever ability, if you can cite an example or paint a picture for us about what that actually means day to day.
Well, you know, environment, atmosphere, when someone walks into a facility, whether it be a stage, you walk into a stage, if the stage is clean and the stage is safe, and it shows that it's safe, then people are comfortable. At the Circus Center, we keep it very clean and organized. But, well, the key word is we. And the we is not myself or the staff, it's the students themselves. They take ownership to where they are in their environment. They take ownership to the safety of their environment. They all go through the rigging and the setup, and to keep their eyes open for things that could or might not be just right. So therefore, it makes that community. Now that's the other word, community. It is so important that all the staff and the students are on the same page, and that they understand not just the wellness of others, but the wellness of themselves. And it's tricky, you know, because in any place that you go, you're going to break the ice. You're going to get through that first month or two, and then it's going to get really hard. And then there's injuries that are going to happen, injuries that that your partner might have been injured, and you have to, now you can't work with your partner, if, let's say it's man-man, hand-to-hand, then you have to figure out what to do. So there's always these variables that come into play. So I try to make sure that the community understands what we're trying to do. I've had people come into the center and they walk in first time and they go, this is a safe place. I like this place. Why? Why is that? You know, and I've asked that question to myself over and over again. And it comes down to everybody that comes here. If there's someone that comes here and they're an alpha, do you say you can't be here? No, you say, okay, this is what you represent. This is what I need you to be a mentor. Now, I'm going to jump really quickly into the talent code. The way that I perceive talent code is that a student comes, yes, they're here to learn, but they're also here to mentor. They're here to help build their peers. Because if you cannot work with your peers, then this can be a really tough road for you because there's such a give and take. So that's one of the requirements that I have, and I call it the talent code, is that you have to follow a code, a structure. And I need you. I've had a student come in and I said, I'm not going to take you unless you can mentor others. And I need you to aspire to others as people aspire to you. Hopefully that answered the question.
Thank you. So Nicky, tell us how your environment influenced you.
Well, I think I think basically we're kind of all on the same page, coming at it from different directions here. But growing up, there was always moments where you're around certain people and all of a sudden, it doesn't necessarily, for me, it wasn't always about the place necessarily, but it was about the people. So people inspire you, people make you more competitive, people make you want to try things, or, you know, so for me, it was always trying to find the right people to be around. Whether I did it instinctively when I was younger or not, I don't know. As I'm older now, I search for those people. And certainly within what we're doing right now as a director, my wife and I direct, when we build a show, we look for people, and this comes down to Jean-Luc's comment about alpha, alpha, alpha. We look for people that will work well together. You might find somebody who's, you know, just incredible, has an amazing talent, but is really difficult to work with. And for us, we tend to stay away from those people unless there's no option at all. And we try to find somebody who can do basically the same thing, maybe not quite as good, but it's so much better to work with them. And ultimately, you're going to get more out of them, and they're going to give more to other people. And so that creates a much healthier environment for everyone to learn and to create a show. So I think essentially it's the same principle. It's all about, for me, it's more about people and less. Obviously, I think Jean-Luc has his center, so my environment changes constantly. So if we do a show in Europe or if we do a show in North America, it's going to be a different place. And so we have to create that with the people.
That's a really interesting perspective because, of course, there's the physical environment, which serves as a foundation. But what you're describing is more of a roving principle. These are yours to construct each time with each new project. So your principles are constant and you can bring that same foundation, but you're actually having to build it from the ground up each time.
Yeah, no, that's exactly it. And I think,
so, go ahead.
Go ahead. I think with when you're creating shows, that is very important. And for me, as a performer over the years, the reason I work that way is through that kind of experience. I've been on so many different shows in my life, and sometimes it's great, sometimes it's awful, sometimes it's just unbelievably good. And so you strive to create that perfect environment.
Let's step out of performing arts for just a sec. And JP, I'd love to hear you cite an example through a sporting lens.
You know, again, for me, it's, you know, a lot of what Nicky said, and it's the same thing with Jean-Luc. You know, they just spoke about safe environment. Okay, here I feel safe. Nicky talked a lot about, you know, working really well with people, connect with people. For me, you know, it's really, really important. And sometimes it could be subtle because all of this, it's not visible. And for me, you know, from my experience, my first Olympic, I didn't know all of this. Everything was more about, you know, performance, about techniques, about, you know, creating, yes, an environment, but more a physical environment, just to make sure, you know, every athlete was safe. And of course, you know, they're a missing piece if you focus too much on this. And my second Olympic became more complete because with a counter performance at my first Olympic in Vancouver, I just discovered that missing piece. And that missing piece was exactly what Jean-Luc explained and what Nicky explained. The connection between people, how to create a safe space. Why it's so important? Because when humans will feel safe, it's how they will bring their true self. It's how they will be really, really authentic. But when you think about it, you know, everybody knows a bit, and some knows a little bit more. But again, I don't think we learn this at school. And it takes some years, you know, for me to discover this. And in Vancouver, my first Olympic, I lean more on my beliefs, my expertise also, but in my fears also. And I said, I cannot do the same thing in direction on my second Olympic. And it's where, you know, I decided to learn more about what brings energy to a human being. And I discovered the science of motivation, the self-determination theory, and I lean on the self-determination theory. And that was so helpful because the self-determination theory, it's a theory, 45 years of research, a lot of researchers around the world, you know, use that framework. And right now, I work with that theory almost 10 years right now. And everything Nicky said or Jean-Luc said, I refer all the time to that theory. Because for me, you know, make sure we are with people we work well with. For me, it brings and satisfies the psychological needs of affiliation or relatedness. If you connect really well with people, it's going to bring you energy. So it's exactly the example of Nicky. And Jean-Luc, you know, brings to create safe space. And I went to the center of Jean-Luc, and I know, you know, I went in and, you know, I feel safe because, you know, the environment was really good. Everybody was supporting each other. So mentoring, like, so a lot of connection. Everybody know their roles. So they feel really competent. And I think, you know, Jean-Luc with his leadership brings a lot of, he gives a lot of choices to his athlete or his coach. So when you have good connection, you feel competent and you feel connected with the people around you, of course you will feel safe because your three psychological needs will be fulfilled. And you're going to be more authentic and you're going to be more able to reach and tackle the different challenges. And that's bring a lot of energy and that's bring a lot of motivation. And when you think about it, motivation, it's mental energy. You know, when we eat well, it's bring a lot of good physical energy to our body. But when we fulfill our three needs, it's bring a lot of mental energy to us, and we are able, you know, to perform at our best and develop and thrive at our best. And it's exactly the way I created that space, that safe space or that environment for my athletes in Sochi in 2014. And after that, you know, when I decided to stop coaching, as a manager, I just replicate the same formula, I can say, in a different environment. And of course, you know, at Cirque du Soleil, it's exactly, you know, what I did with the training programs. You know, always try to see the coaches fulfill their needs. And after that, create that cascade effect to see the artists fulfill their three needs and have the best mental energy to perform and develop at their best.
Wow,
energy is a big word. And I find if we circle back to the very first comment around these universal principles, We need a lot of energy. Anyone who's endeavoring to achieve, to excel, to pursue a goal, to put in all of the time and the focus and the concentration, that takes a great deal of energy. And that's where I think this interconnectedness is so interesting, because it really is multidimensional. Yes, we know what good nutrition can do for the body, but you're absolutely right that both the mental and emotional components, that degree of energy and those three working together are really how an individual, a human, athlete, artist, whatever the case may be, can be best tooled to stay on the course toward their optimal performance. Because of course, we don't just get there. We're talking years and years and a bajillion hours of the practice that it takes to be able to get into that space. And so I'm curious from the student standpoint, because Jean-Luc, you work more with young people and people at the beginning of their career who are very much in a learning space. How do you manage energy?
Well, the first thing that comes to my mind is ownership. A student owning where they're at and their story and their journey. Sometimes we students have a tendency to frustrate ourselves because we're either too early or too late, or et cetera. So we put all these requirements on ourselves. So I think acceptance of self is an important focal point, and helping the student understand that. And that ownership, it's when you go on stage, when you go to practice, you own the fact that you're going to succeed. You own the fact that you're going to fail, and failure is important because it's learning. It's not a negative word. It's a very positive word because that's part of the process, and we're always going to do both of those things. So I guess my word would be ownership, owning where you're at, owning the history of your body, your injuries, learning from your injuries, preventing injuries because you recognize the weakness of certain body parts, and sometimes it can be mental as well. So as a leader, mentor, coach, I try to have a staff on hand to work with the students with injury prevention and active recovery, so that they can their bodies are their I'm sure there's a really good word for it, but their instrument, it's their machine, and they therefore have to really focus on working their journey properly. And of course, us as coaches, we try to, as the best of our ability, to keep them on track.
I think you have to love what you do. I think that kind of all of that will come if you love what you do. So a lot of the choices that I'm sure you have to go through this with Jean, with people, it's trying to find something that they love. And once they do, it just, all the energy that you need is right there. All the motivation, the determination, it will come. And, as long as they have a base to build on.
No, that's so true, Nicky. Danielle Sia, who we both know, came and did a symposium here, and there was a mother who had a 14-year-old daughter who is actually at ENC right now. She said, what do you tell your 14-year-old daughter about this business? And Danielle Sia said it right on. Same thing you said, Nicky. You got to have fun, enjoy yourself. Because if you're not enjoying yourself, you're not going to be open to change, open to what's in front of you. You're going to be closed off. So yeah, play is so important.
It also, circus hurts. It's painful. So if you don't love what you do and you're not willing to go through that pain, those bruises, those skinned hands and sore feet, and it won't happen. So
one of my coaches said it was international pain. Everybody feels it.
Yeah.
Yeah, another universal principle when it comes to most high performance things, irrespective of what the thing is, you're in it that deep, it's gonna hurt. You make reference to fun and just passion and loving it, and I think it's an interesting throw back to the book version of the Talent Code, when we talk about one of the very big principles in this theory is triggering, and it's the impulse toward. And it made me think of, at the very beginning, that sense of being captivated or being hooked by something that lets you then commit to the pathway ahead of you. So it makes you not enjoy remotely the pain that might come, the ripped hands, the bruises, the this, the that, the aches and pains of your physical body, but it absolutely reminds you why you're putting up with it. And I think that is such an instrumental piece of it that, you know, sometimes we do fast forward a little and start to look at outcomes a little bit too quickly, like the goal being, oh, podium, or oh, the pinnacle job, as opposed to really, I think, diving into the passion of the process and just allowing yourself to be completely immersed and hooked and loving what you're doing. Because ultimately that's really helping, and we won't get into all the science of it, but that's helping fire what your body needs to actually evolve the talent.
100%.
JP, do you want to weigh in on that
Yeah,
at all,
exactly.
around deep practice?
Oh yeah. Again, you know, I think every child, every kid, you know, they start circus, sport, other stuff, you know, by fun. And after that, you know, if they feel they can evolve into this, you know, it could be music, it could be dance, it could be, you know, different things. So the different things are just a vehicle to see the human behind, you know, the role they're gonna get, evolve and thrive. It's where I think for me, it comes back to the environment, because, you know, when the young artists will, you know, go at different center to develop their skills, they will come with a level of passion already. The environment will be super important to make sure to fuel that passion, make sure to develop that passion. You know, sometimes we maybe we can forget a bit the importance of the process, the importance of, you know, what is the meaning to train a bunch of young kids, because like I said, they already motivated, or they already passionate about their what they're doing. I think it's where the role of the coaches or administrators or managers, you know, what kind of environment we will create and why it's important to create that environment, the why behind, and connected the why with a really strong sense of purpose, or is it meaningful, you know? And if you can create that environment, and you know you are responsible and you have ownership as a manager or coach to create that environment to see the young athletes or artists thrive, it's how, you know, the young artists will have again more and more passion and more motivation, and that energy will be really tangible. And it's exactly, I think, where we can help to create that awareness into the different environment in circus, but everywhere, at work also. You know, one of the coach I work with in the past weeks, he just said, we need to start with the atmosphere first. You know, we need to set the atmosphere first. And I said, whoa, that's a quote you can put on the t-shirt, you know, it's so good. And it is really true. And that coach was quite young. But if you start with the atmosphere first, you take responsibility to create really safe, not only physical, but psychological safe environment, inclusive, really developmental, you know, try to follow the pace of everyone, because some are really late bloomer, but you need to support them also. It's where, you know, we will bring a lot of purpose, meaning, and a lot of energy into our environment. And after that, when you set the atmosphere first, deliberate practice, working smart, you know, it's going to be obvious for those young kids, and they will love it. They're going to have a lot of fun. It's going to make sense for them. And at the end, you know, when they're going to be on stage, they transfer that kind of emotion to the public. And it's how we increase wellness inside of our community. So everything is connected, but you need to start with a real meaning and a real strong purpose. And after that, created again that safe environment to see the athletes or artists develop at their best.
So let's assume we have those things. I'd like to hear from each of you in a version that either your experience being coached or your experience coaching, what that actually looks like for you once we have the environment created, once we have the confidence that we are in that safe space. Now we're moving into more of a one-to-one situation. Talk to me about an example or a philosophy or a coaching principle that you uphold or that you've been a receiver of that let you go to that next level.
The next part for me is having a system in place. Having a system that you can apply to the general student. And then after that, of course, you're going to have different levels of students, and taking that system and listening to where can we take the next step. I've had students that have come in, and on first sight, I would go, wow, this is going to be exciting, you know, because I look at the way they walk, I look at their body, I look at the history, and then all of a sudden it hits me that they're really not all that interested in this. It's just natural talent for them. And then I have other students I walk in that don't have the walk, don't have the talk, but they have such a strong passion. So therefore I take focus to them as well. And from there, I've always been so surprised about where they can take their bodies, where they can take their passion, their imagination. So there was a coach that I worked with years ago on Russian bar. And after I finished my tenure with Alegria and moved on, we reconnected years later. And he put his arm around me and he said, Jean-Luc, if you want to be a good teacher, you have to have a system. And I didn't quite understand it at that point because I know that my system, my wannabe system, is definitely not his system. But as I've worked with other mentors, like the people on this panel, I have discovered a system that is not closed doors. Doors are always opening. So when I take a student, we start from the beginning and work our way up. And it's not just me. You have to have a staff that understands that principle and that openness, because everybody has something to offer, and I find that everybody can surprise you. So my big thing is having a system, having a process so that you are secure with yourself as a mentor, as a teacher, so therefore you can have the opportunity to be redirected and surprised.
I think for me, when I work with people as a director, and I coach as well sometimes, it's about not destroying that joy. So it's really important to be careful not to crush it, because you can get impatient as a coach and you can sort of say the wrong thing because you just did that. I just told you not to do that. But it's that understanding people, staying with them, and then allowing them to bring something that you don't have, you don't necessarily think of, and all of a sudden they can surprise you. I mean, especially when we're directing, I love to let people show me stuff. They get, they'll come and I've got this thing that I do, and you go, okay, show it to me. And it might not be immediate where that fits in with this puzzle of a show. But at some point you'll go, oh, you know what, John, can you do that thing that you did? Because that's going to be perfect at this moment. So if you hadn't given them the opportunity to show that stuff and to, connect with me on that level, then we wouldn't have been able to put that in the show and enhance what we're trying to create. So that, in the same way, is to trying to build people and let them grow by letting them give the part of themselves and not crush their spirit and their desire to do what they want to do. Because I think a lot of the time, especially, I mean, I'm working with my son, who's a 14-year-old boy. He's a tennis, totally into tennis. He wants to be a pro. I'm a high-level tennis player, but nothing like that, obviously. But it's again, this is one of those sports it's just repetitive. It's just, you just have to do it over and over and over again. And he has an incredible passion for it. And so it is hard for me to be on the other side of the net and be hitting ball swing and play. And he makes the same mistakes over and over again. And you have to be patient, because it's not necessarily something you can just fix like that. It comes with that muscle memory, that's thousands and thousands of balls, and so that, and I just don't want to crush his spirit, because he really does believe he can be a pro. So I'm like, you go, dude, and let's see where this takes us. So that's the way I approach younger people.
I'm hearing a few things in that, and the sort of rudimentary version is positive reinforcement, or simply not being a dream crusher, but really just it's just the positive skew, being that person who is, whether it's loud or quiet, you are cheerleading just by virtue of allowing that passion to be fueled. I think the other thing that I'm hearing is this notion of making sure that it's the seen and heard. In a visual practice, in a performance environment, it's often seen because you are physically executing, but it's the being seen that again sort of perpetuates and grows the confidence for then that two-way communication to really flourish. Maybe it's also being heard in a work environment, for example. It's often more a question of being heard. So I love that notion of the what's very cyclical, in fact, because by allowing the athlete or artist to be seen and heard, you are putting yourself into this, into the learning role as well. And I think that's, whether they recognize it or not in that moment, I think we all probably have moments where we look back, or we've been in experiences where we realize, yes, I was the student in that case, but I can appreciate that I'm also teaching at the same time. It ties right into what Jean-Luc was saying about that mentorship. It's like this, it's full circle, really.
Absolutely.
I really like what Jean-Luc said about system and the structure, and everybody, again, inside of the structure, they are guide into the goals. And Nicky, what he just explained, for me, it sounds like he has a really strong purpose, really, really strong purpose. And he's really conscious also. For me, it's really important to always, when you are a coach or also a manager, always present yourself. You're gonna be there even when it's gonna be difficult, because in performing art, or also in sport or at work, everybody, when you think about it, they're always they always learn something new. It's always new for them. Every day, every week, it's new. And it's okay, sometimes some difficulties will appear. And for me, the feedback, developing the way we give feedback as coach or manager is really, really important, because it's our tool to communicate, to support, to guide. And of course, we need to give positive feedback where it will reinforce the good behaviors. But what I've learned a lot, it's also acknowledging negative emotions, also acknowledging when it's difficult, acknowledging, yeah, I know it's difficult right now, but I'm going to be there. And most important, I think, for an artist, a young athlete, a young employee, you know, it's difficult right now. I'm going to be there and you're enough to succeed. Just that sentence, you're going to be enough. You know, I think that artist will feel really heard, will feel, you know, okay, my coach or my manager really understand what I feel right now. And right now I have the safe space to try different things, doing mistakes and learning from those mistakes. And again, growing together. You know, I think have the skills to acknowledging the negative emotion, and after that giving negative feedback also in a good way to don't hurt and don't crush the dream, like Nicky said. It's a really important tool. We need to be conscious, and I think coaches and managers can really learn how to be better at giving feedback. And I think to develop talent, it's really, really important.
I'd like to invite each of you to sort of lean into your version, your nutshell version, your synopsis of what talent code means to you. And I will start. I'm just going to use one word, but you're invited to go on a little longer than that. What I'm so interested in hearing from all of you through this conversation is this interconnectedness. It's all connected. There's not any single piece of this that is in isolation or an ingredient in the recipe that is doing the entire job. It's really the grand collection of all these parts. So my word is connection. And I'll pass the torch and hear from Jean-Luc. How would you encapsulate talent code?
No, I never thought of it that way. Yes, connection, understanding yourself, but when you say connection, I'm thinking of connection to myself, to the student. And so from the lens of the coach working with the student also has their lens, and they have the way that they're perceiving your direction. I cannot say that I always succeed with developing talent. There's always the ones that fall through the cracks. I call them the squeaky wheel. And I like the squeaky wheel because the louder your squeak, the more I'm going to listen. So, and therefore I get sort of passionate about understanding that squeak. So that I like what you said about the connection. You, as a teacher, looking at a student, first you have to have that bond, and that bond is that trust. It's not my protege. I do not use that word at all, and I don't let my teachers use that word at all, because the student is a protege of their environment. So I think that once a student comes in and you see that talent, and then they have to see the same talent in you, so therefore they trust you and they trust your direction. There's a lot of times I may say, no more talking, let's just do, let's keep doing, or there's other times where I'll say, I'm going to analyze this and I'm going to tell you what I think, 5% of what I think, because it's you're not going to be able to retain it until you practice it and practice it and practice it. Put the time in. I love it when a student walks away, and this is where we get into the student versus coaches, coaching world versus student world. In the student world, we just do anything and everywhere that we can do to do our passion. In the coaches world, you come to class, you do the class, and you leave. No, you leave. You got to practice on your own. So they're taking an essence of you, the coach, to their own environment so that they can keep the movement going. And I've had times where a student goes away for a week and they come back and I'll say, you've been practicing, you know? So I like that, Stacy. I like it's not just about, I've been looking at it just about the student, talent code, talent. It's look in the mirror. It's both of us working together for a common goal, their goal.
I think being very honest here, until I was invited to be part of this conversation, I didn't even know what talent code was. So it's kind of, I'm learning it today, and I'm learning, over the last few days while we were prepping for this meeting. But I think for me, it's instinctual. All of these things that we're discussing, a lot of people do already instinctually. I think if we lay this out, and it's great to do that, to put it in a code, I think maybe that will trigger certain people who are missing a piece of that code. I think, like you said, Stacy, everything is connected. And if you don't have all of these pieces, you're not going to be a good coach. You're not going to be a good student. And the environment's going to be poor. So you have to have all of it. So for me, my word, I guess, not to describe, but I would say this is instinctual. And it certainly has been in my career. And I've come across people who just do this naturally. And you come across environments that present that naturally. Or whether it's been thought about before or not, I tend to think most of the time it's a happy accident, and they've done it through instinct. So.
Really, again, I think everything is connected, like you said. For me, my first month into the circus world, of course, I had a lot of conversation, but one conversation struck me a lot, and I was with a coach in Montreal, and she just explained how that was important for her to find the essence of the artist on the front of her, So, and that was really a different point of view on for me, coming from sports and starting with the human being we have on the front of us, finding that uniqueness, finding that authenticity. And if we can be a coach, a mentor, to make sure the young artists can discover that essence, that authenticity, that connection with themselves, I think it's really how they will develop their full potential and their talent, because they are unique. They are only them. But when they understand this and being them, that's their powerful tools. It's really, what talent means for me. And I learned this with my first month into that circus world. And after that, if I refer with my sports background as a coach, it's so true. If you start with what you have on the front of you and make sure you respect that development, of course, we will get a really good talent, and really unique and authentic talent.
What I love about all of what I'm hearing is that this really transcends circus. It transcends sport. And I think at the end of the day, that's where we can dive even more deeply into whatever concept of universal principles you hold. We're talking now about great things about being human. Yes, you may be striving in a particular environment for a particular goal, but all of the learnings along the way about what each of you has cited and brought to the table really speaks to actually developing great human beings. Parting shots. Any final comments?
Yes, I was interrupting. I'll start with after what Jean-Paul just said, I came up with my word is ownership. I think of it from a sports point of view, because I played rugby and played hockey and football and all that stuff. You own your moment just before the starting gate. I'm going to own this moment, and I'm going to accept the consequences within the moment, and I'm going to adjust. So I guess my parting comment would be, as a coach, as a future performer or athlete, is owning your space. And therefore, having an open perspective to what is happening so that you can adjust and make adjustments, whether that's an injury, whether that's a mental block. I've had gymnasts that have come in level 10, they can't flip anymore because they all of a sudden have this mental block. So therefore you have to recognize it and figure out a way to overcome it. So I really enjoyed this panel. I've learned so much from the simple and more complicated perspectives. But I think that our athletes have quite a future ahead of them. And looking forward to continuing to understand better talent and how to find each person their own uniqueness, so that they can own their space in the world.
I would say seek out positivity, seek out positive environment, positive people, positive coaching, everything about, and love what you do. If you can do that and you'll channel yourself in the right direction, whether it's through Jean-Luc's circus school or whichever way you're going, try and be positive and be positive to other people. And that will help you grow as a performer, as an artist, as a coach. And I think that would be my parting. And I'm glad to have been part of this and to learn more about it. And I kind of like the way this goes around. Jean-Luc says something, I said something, then Jean-Paul makes complete sense of everything. Because it's nice to have the scientist at the end. So I'll pass it over to you, Jean-Paul.
Thank you, guys. You know, I think for me, I think more and more, you know, through our discussion, it's, I think, becoming conscious, you know, of, because you are unique, you can have a really strong impact into the community. Of course, you need to do different things to have the biggest impact or optimize your impact into the community. And if everybody become conscious, the community will be just stronger. So I think consciousness is really, really important for me from my perspective. And again, you know, that was a real pleasure, you know, to talk and to dig more about what is talent, and coming from your experience, that was just awesome. And Stacy, thank you. You guide us so well. So thank you, everyone. That was a real pleasure.
Well, a special thanks to all of you. Thanks to those of you tuning into this Pro Talk. I have in front of me from San Diego Circus Center, Jean-Luc Martin, and Nicky Dewhurst, director, creator, writer, performer, and Jean-Paul Richard, who is working more these days, taking all of this information and all of these learnings into a professional environment, arm's length from sport, but still very much immersed in sport, the management of. So thanks to all of you. And my parting shot, because I'm giving myself one, is a reference to the book, The Talent Code, because I had a reread and I'm reminded how much I enjoyed it and how meaningful it is and how it really actually helps frame up so much of what we do know instinctively. So it's The Talent Code, it's Daniel Coyle, and my new favorite word, myelin. Look it up, you will not regret it.